Welcome one more day to space in Armonía. As you see, there is some wind and I don't know if the recording will come clear, but excuse me, I will try to make it as clear as possible. It's very hot outside. I am now in the shadow and here you can enjoy the wind. It's very refreshing. And I will be reflecting deeply again about what we are and becoming aware of all that is. Because some people have been asking very interesting questions. A person said that she understood intellectually what I was trying to convey in the previous video, but she finds hard to go from self-awareness to the state of divine conscience. She realizes conscience has to do with perceiving love and divine beauty through us, and even the divine being living through us. But she is not able to find it, even though she has faith in this divine being. And this is very interesting because we have to distinguish between becoming aware, the perception itself, self-awareness, and the realization of the divine presence in us. This is a big shift. And very often we are so immersed in our worries, in our thoughts, that we fail. We don't realize that we cannot be living without the divine life in us. We tend to think that we are just one more object in the world, but this is not the case. The whole, the absolute, is living through us, and we can participate in that absolute experience as an emanation of the absolute. Don't get me wrong. When I said we are not the absolute, I was trying to imply that we don't have the right to say we are the absolute if we don't manifest it consciously. This is why this person said, if we are not the absolute, then what are we? And this is a very legitimate question, obviously, because we have to realize everything that we are at once. Obviously, we can deny that we are the physical body because we can perceive the physical body. But if we cannot go beyond the psychic experience, then we don't have the right to say we are absolute beings, even though we have a seed or an embryo. So let's start by realizing what consciousness is and how it leads to conscience. This person said that consciousness and conscience seem very abstract to her. And as I said, this is very interesting because consciousness and conscience are the most specific, the most concrete, if you will, action that we can feel, because we cannot perceive anything without awareness itself. So to be aware of awareness is the most specific, solid action that you can find. From this point of view, then we can deduce everything else. For instance, the sensory perception through the five senses is very ephemeral. All we see are just a play of colors, a play of perceptions, forms that depend very much on our brain. But we are not really looking for this sort of perception. Even the animals perceive forms. But the forms and all we see are based on planes that we don't see. There was even a sage called Rabbi Eleazar. He was one of the wise men that studied with Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the man that brought the Zohar. And he said, Rabbi Eleazar, there are many worlds, but there are in this one. Because in this one, we can feel the presence of many other planes of existence that we don't see. We can deduce them with our intellectual neshama, our intellectual soul, which is divine, but it has a limit. We have to go beyond the neshama and find a life and a conscience that comes from Atzilut. And in this world, we can deduce the divine simply by looking at the form of the trees, even our presence, our human form, our thoughts, emotions, and physicality are a reflection of the whole cosmos. By knowing ourselves, we can know the whole. So we can also know the Holy One has a mind, what we can consider as divine heart or emotions, and a sphere of action. In the same way, he is an absolute being that transcends all that. So we also can find these planes in ourselves: physicality, emotions that are mostly astral substance, the mind, which can be very subtle, can come from Atzilut, and also the core of our being, the being of light we are. This is Atzilut, the plane of emanation. We are an emanation of the holy light. And these four spheres or planes are the so-called unfoldment of the divine name in us. So what are we? Are we a physical body? No, because we can perceive it. Are we our psyche? No, because we can become aware of our psyche. Our astral body can be perceived. Some people don't have an astral body, they have an emotional body, a planetary body, but they can still be aware of it. We also have a divine mind, so to say, or divine consciousness, but this divine consciousness is not the base of reality as some believe. We can go beyond. The divine mind can transcend even the plane of Beria. Beria is known as the world of creation. I call it the world of soul making. In that world, we obviously have a consciousness known as Neshama, the breath of intellectual consciousness, the breath of life, when it's connected to the divine source. But this plane of the mind can still get trapped in the world, and this is the problem. When we become identified with the psychic world or even the physical world, then the neshama, the intellectual divine mind, is trapped. That's the fallen angel, so to say. So we can also say we are fallen angels in that sense, but we have to look for that which transcends all that. And that's what the Master brought. He said, "You in me and I in the Father. I and the Father are one. He who saw me saw the Father," because he was the manifestation, the expression of the Father. He didn't claim to be the absolute fully, because he became a servant. And this was explained by Paul in Philippians 2:5. He said, "Have the mind that the Messiah had," because even though he came in the form of God, the divine form, the divine name, the divine personality, he didn't claim to be equal to him, but he emptied himself and he became a servant. He served as a human because he clothed himself with a carnal cloth, an astral cloth, a mental cloth, and he manifested his absolute being through those garments. He could say, "I am before Abraham was, I am. Abraham was an expression of the word of Beria, Adam, but the Messiah came from Atzilut, which is the plane that came to save what was lost. What was lost first in the cosmic catastrophe known as the explosion of the world of points, the breaking of the vessels, when certain mismanagement of the planets led to different injustices in different planets, in different worlds. Therefore, Atzilut was a divine light comprised of the crown, the divine wisdom and divine understanding in conscience that comes to dwell in the worlds of the mental organization, astral formation and physicality in order to rescue what was lost. So, when we are able to perceive all this in ourselves and understand it, when we are able to go beyond our physicality, our astral condition, and even our intellectual neshama, we can say, I am an expression of the Absolute. But these are big words. We have to manifest it. If we claim to be divine masters, we have to behave as such. We cannot claim to be divine masters if we are not able to heal the sick, if we are not able to conquer our passions, if we are not able to perceive divine presence in ourselves. This is why we can be still seeds or embryos or recently born babies, soul babies. But are we really divine kids walking consciously towards the Father? If we have not stabilized divine awareness and divine conscience in ourselves, we cannot be divine kids. We are babies suckling from the breasts of divine providence, but we have to keep growing. And there are stages, obviously. Some people hear about this and they don't get the message. They are fully asleep. They might have a seed. Their spirit is immortal, but they are still like animals, or like demons, like astral beings. Other people can understand this slightly, or can grasp something, but they forget. In this case, they are a bit more, but they have to keep waking up and standing up after falling, because we can fall many times, but it doesn't matter. If you fall 7 times, you stand up 7 times. It doesn't matter how many times you find darkness in yourself. We have to keep digging and getting rid of everything we are not. Obviously there is a limit. Sometimes we become sick and the cosmos say, well, game over for you in this occasion, let's leave it for another occasion. That's okay. But there are always certain limitations. If we deplete all our possibilities for one personality, our true divine being will look for another personality. So we have to be very coherent. We have to realize that we are not our absolute divine being if we are not fully united with Him. This is the idea of manifesting our true will, our true conscience, our true personality in tune. That's basically the idea of manifesting the true personality of the Father, true love, true beauty. So, with these words, I leave it for now. Ask as many questions as you wish. And until the next time, let's keep harmonizing mind, heart and body, using the divine method, following the way of life, to express the love without limits, life without fractures. integral conscience and deep blissful serenity.